Hey guys, and welcome back to our grand finale here between Ninjas in Pyjamas and TFS. If you just joined us, game number one in this best of five did go to NIP very comfortably in the end. It was an 18-2 scoreline, and we are into the picks and bans for game number two. Now, Pulse, we were talking about this before in game one, about TFS having to go back to the drawing board, come up with new strategies, and try something different. They've banned Kassadin and Annie. So they're trying to get rid of that support, that the flash tibbers that we saw a couple times there. And interestingly enough, NIP this time actually banning out the Kale, which Nukeduck was running in the first game. So obviously really respecting that champion.
Yeah, NIP are actually banning their own champion, so take that away from the TheFoxSound. I feel like that might be the start of them trying to run the reset composition they were running in the last series. And the TheFoxSound are forced to ban out the champions that they know Ninjas in Pyjamas are very good at running, but they still have to think about the last game and how that went. So therefore they're putting some consideration towards that by banning out the Annie, and the Fresh will also come out there as well. But in NIP have just a plethora of picks to choose from.
They do, and Elise is going to be first pick, which is just such a strong jungler. But this is going to leave Jinx open, that was banned in game number one, and alongside that Leona, that would be a terrifying lane to play against. You've got all the CC and the follow-up damage afterwards, plus Leona all round is just a very good team fighting champion. So I would like to see these locked in, Pulse. I think this would be a good start.
Yeah, I would as well, and we saw Alendix playing Leona basically every game I've casted him, and he's done amazingly well. I'm surprised teams haven't started banning that out against him. Leona is one of those picks who is being picked up way more often, but there's other picks you have to prioritize, and they've realized Leona's left open, which is very difficult to deal with, and you have to put these bans everywhere. It just depends on which lane you want to prioritize, and being the most difficult to deal with as you progress through the game.
So interestingly enough, they've banned their own Kale, and then they've picked up the Yasuo from Lapras. So this time around, Nukeduck is going to be running Yasuo in mid, or at least that's what I assume. It could be ran at top lane, but with Nukeduck picking that one, I would assume it's mid lane. So quite an interesting chain of events here, and also with taking the Kha'Zix pulse as well. I mean, strong jungler.
Yeah, Kha'Zix is actually something we've seen a lot from Ninjas in Pyjamas specifically, because they like their Jinx combo, they like their Kha'Zix, but that's going to be straight up taken away, and the TheFoxSound saying, we're going to try and do exactly what you do, and see if you can react to your own strategies. And Jinx and Kha'Zix basically do the same thing. They get into a team fight, usually as jungle Kha'Zix, I'm assuming that's jungle Kha'Zix, will like to max the leap first in terms of evolution, but max the Q with your points in the skill order, and then Jinx will just have the passive. So when you get your first kill, you can snowball a team fight out of control, and if you run away from it, they'll chase you down because of resets. So it can be very difficult to play against if they get ahead, but if they do not get the necessary kills early, then they end up not really doing anything.
Well, I would definitely go along with that. I think it's going to be Kha'Zix in jungle. We've seen it, as I said yesterday, from Trashy, and it's typically seen right now in this current meta as a jungler because of the kind of ganking potential that Kha'Zix has. Plus the changes to the Elder Spirit Lizard. I think Jap was saying this before in LCS, that's opened up a lot of these AD kind of assassination junglers that we're starting to see come to fruition because of the changes to that item. It's a much more widely picked first item for a lot of junglers, especially when you put that alongside the Last Whisper and the Brutalizer as well. Crazy damage.
The follow-up pick is going to be Sona, and I'm just waiting for the Rumble to be locked in. I am casting over the stream for the duration of Champion Sex, so I'm going to be a couple seconds behind, but the Rumble was locked in. Rumble top lane, not knowing what you're going to be up against is sometimes consistent, but can be outplayed significantly with a lot of picks. And I just saw the Blitzcrank be locked in by Miffy, which is probably going to be in the support role, something we haven't seen for a while. If you're going to pick a Blitzcrank, you usually pick Fresh before that, but Fresh has been banned out, so hopefully we'll see some mad life hooks coming in this game.
And honestly, going back to the Heimerdinger Colossal days, Miffy never really played Blitzcrank Pulse. No. He was more known for like Thresh, Fiddlesticks, Annie, them kind of supports, even Nami at times, but not Blitzcrank. So this is going to be quite interesting for me to watch at the bot lane. Obviously, if you do grab in, Jinx has no escape, so you're going to be forced to burn that flash. Maybe that's one of the things they're going for here, Pulse, the lack of maneuverability at bot lane, plus the fact they're against the Sona as well. Blitzcrank is considered as a hard counter to Sona for the same reasons as Jinx. You pull her in, you can burst her down super fast.
So the last pickup is going to be Lapras on Katarina, and picking Katarina last pick against what already has been locked in Because it's a Yasuo mid lane, yes, you can kind of lane against that, but when they've just locked in Blitzcrank, who's got basically free methods by himself to stop you from using your ultimate, and his own ultimate is instant to stop Death Lotus, I'm not sure if that's a reliable pickup, but it's definitely an all-in pick.
And all about the resets as well, Pauls. Kha'Zix and Katarina. Yeah. If you get one kill going down there, suddenly there is a crazy amount of damage on top of your carries.
Okay, guys, we are going to jump through a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to be in the second game of this Best of 5 series between Ninjas in Pyjamas and Challenger Series number 17's winners, TheFoxSound. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Ninjas in Pyjamas versus the TheFoxSound for the grand finale of EUS Challenger Series number 18. The first game went very convincingly to NIP. We'll see if they can go for a repeat performance or if TFS can even this one up. I am Pulse, and I am joined by Metas.
Hey dude, how's it hanging?
That's going pretty well, and I'm very excited for this game because we've got a couple unconventional picks and a very unconventional composition from TFS, because typically you'll run like 2 reset champions, but you won't go 3. And they're also running in the Katarina. This feels like a very all-in composition that is like, if we win the early game, then we win the game. If not, then we just die because all our picks are incredibly flimsy.
That's very true, and it was Stress that said it in the previous best of 3 that Jinx is also a pseudo reset champion because of the get excited passive that she has in team fights. Very easy, as we saw Ambiguity and NA LCS to do, just chase players down in team fights. You get 1 assist and suddenly that transitions into 3 or 4 or even 5. So definitely one to watch out for. But we're talking about this in the break as well, Pulse, that you look across the board, they don't really have an out-and-out tank. They can have a couple champions that build tanky, like Rumble with Ice Crystal Scepter, Andy's Strawman, and maybe Sunfire Cape or something on Katarina that a lot of players are doing, but it's not really tanky, it's just health.
Yeah, you can have everyone go kind of pseudo-tank, but then you just wouldn't do enough damage to actually make your resets count. Katarina is probably one of the ones who can do that more because she is a more traditional complete reset champion. Miffy just takes away the blue buff. It actually just started resetting, but it's still very annoying.
And I like here that knowing what was happening, knowing that Mithy is playing Blitzcrank, Santrin was like, they're probably going to take blue, so I'm just going to start on red. And in actual fact, Blitzcrank was more of just a nuisance there, didn't do anything to Kha'Zix. They didn't steal blue buff away, and now Kha'Zix is going to come down and take this one away. Zykion has been pulled in. And this is a scary lane, I've got to say, from Zykion and Crazy Camps, because if Mithy's on point with his grabs, this can get ugly very fast.
Yeah, because Crazy Camps doesn't have an escape, and then he can only use his flash once. Zytian again is on Sona, who is the one of the least mobile supports in lane. Incredibly squishy, is the squishiest support. So if Miffy lands a good grab, then they're just going to die, because Freeze outputs so much damage as Lucian. If he's allowed to land both his Piercing Light and the Light Slinger into Ardent Blaze, they just instantly pop. So this bottom lane is going to be quite difficult for TFS to stay alive.
It certainly will. Some questions in chat. Which Sona skin is this? It's Silent Night, which I believe is a Christmas skin, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I really like it. I think that's one of the best Sona skins, in my opinion. But
I think Arcade Sona is the way I go.
Yeah, I think I'd probably stick with Arcade Sona. I like the custom animations are super awesome. But Miffy is trying to take control of this bush, and I'm just looking at all the lanes in general, and they're all suffering.
Yep, they're all being pushed back to their towers, or at least definitely second best. And Mithy's playing Blitz very much as you'd expect to see a Leona or Thrash, with lots of presence, lots of threat, saying, if you get out of position, I'm going to grab you and you're going to take a chunk of damage. So you're going to have to back on away. And this is giving Freeze just free reign to put some poke down, get all the CS he wants. And Mithy's playing Blitz perfectly here, I've got to say.
Yeah, so in the top lane, in fact in the bottom lane, the grab lands onto Zytian. It doesn't look like it's going to secure a kill, but it's just kind of foreboding of exactly what's going to happen in this lane for the next 5 minutes. But in the top lane, Renekton against Rumble. Renekton's actually coming out on ahead. It's very difficult for Rumble to land his harassment without 1, pushing the wave, and 2, he just can't land the Electro Harpoons when 0-0 plays around it, because he can stay in the minions, whereas Rumble kind of can't.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So it's probably going to be a case of jungle intervention coming about here at top lane, I'd expect to see happening, although at the moment it's Elise that's near the top. So Almin looking to make some moves, going to be taking away those double golems while Kha'Zix actually recalls. So Santrin is not going to play any part in the early stages here. And it's going to be quite a difficult lane actually to gank, I would have to say, from Elise in mid with Katarina, because Shun Po is so slippery to play against.
Yeah, like Katarina won't be ganked, but she doesn't offer too much to a gank herself. She offers a bit of damage, and at level 6, she can just output even more. But she doesn't aid ganks very well in the same way like Nidalee doesn't aid ganks very well, but she can escape from them very efficiently. Lapras just had to survive the laning phase, but surviving often isn't enough when you're against the Yasuo, because he's also going to become a massive threat. We actually saw the TheFoxSound run this last game, and it didn't quite work out because he wasn't able to itemize, but this time he should be able to. He's already massively ahead in farm. 2 waves ahead at 5 minutes is quite hefty.
I think a lot of that came down to jungle intervention. Speaking of which, at top lane, actually, they are going to have Armin coming in, forcing away that flash. Here comes the Cocoon. Do they have the raw damage output? Underneath the tower, looks likely. Ignite takes down. First blood for Zoro Zero. And a beautiful rappel up into the air from Armin. So moves have been made, and NIP coming out ahead once again.
That's as smooth as a tower dive can be at this stage in the game. They waited until he flashed, and that was a preemptive flash by Xerius right there. Like, he didn't need to flash because the tower aggro was not already onto either Zoro Zero and Amin. He flashed, then they engaged, because then they had extra time to play with. They knew he wasn't going anywhere because he'd already burnt his summoner, and then it just resulted in a kill. Had he used a flash a little bit later and was less twitchy, then he might have been able to get a 1-for-1.
Well, Nuke did just think up to level 6 and was thinking about going for that engage and lap press before realising that Santrin was lurking and very smartly pulled himself back. Didn't want to overextend, knocks him with the gust of wind. I thought for a second he was going to go back in, but Santrin was too close.
It's already looking not great for the TheFoxSound because they need kills to really get rolling as a composition. Lapis just being stopped from recalling. And these guys, I'm very interested in seeing how they itemize because I do not feel like a conventional item build will help them out here because Xerius is just being bullied around by Zoro Zero in the top lane.
This is pretty brutal right now. All Xerius can do is just turn tail and run. This is giving Zoro Zero extra farm, giving him extra experience as well. Already finds himself up nearly 20 CS on his counterpart in mid lane, over 10 CS difference. So across the board, as you said previously, NIP in the driver's seat. Going back to the point I was going to make before First Blood went down, Kale was banned. I believe that's one of the main reasons why Yasuo wasn't that strong last time around, because Kale played so well, Nuke Duck, and the ganks. They banned Kale out, then picked Yasuo. So this was clearly a preemptive lock-in here for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an excellent point. Like, the reason it didn't work last time is because the team composition against Yasuo was perfect. And this time around, they've made sure that the TheFoxSound cannot counter the Yasuo as well as they would have liked. And the TheFoxSound responded in a very aggressive manner and said, okay, well, we're just going to pick reset champions and hope for the best. And when we hit level 6, they'll hit a huge spike in damage because they'll all start hitting their ultimates and they'll just increase their damage tenfold. And we'll have to see what they can do from that. Because if they don't start winning in their lanes and start winning in their kind of micro fights, then they won't win the big fight. They won't win the skirmishes. They won't win the 3v3s and 5v5s. They'll just continue to fall behind.
Yeah, and NIP are clearly putting a lot of eggs in their Yasuo basket because if you look at their bans, Kale, Lee Sin, and Vi, all champions that can shut Nuke Duck down in mid lane. They wanted no part of that to allow him the freedom to just free farm and crush. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yep, Xerius just forced to use his equalizer in the top lane to clear it out. That's what he's been resorting to. Now the level 6 region has been hit by the jungler, bottom lane will be hitting that very shortly and probably just under the next minion wave, so this might be the opportunity to use the gank, but so will Miffy and so will Freeze.
Yeah, Miffy actually flashing in to power Fizz. Crazy Cap's up into the air. He's been exhausted as well. Here comes the teleport. Beautiful grab, but actually maybe saving Crazy Caps. Well, only for a few more seconds as Armin goes in to secure that kill. They are going to manage to take down the Spider Queen. Now turn it back round. Beautiful crescendo. Here comes Santrin. Can he get those resets? Double kill coming in. And the heal as well, but here comes the culling. Forcing off the flash. Nuked up from the side. This would be a beautiful double buff for him to pick up. Is he going to be able to do so? Doesn't look likely, so somehow, someway, Santrin manages to survive. Here comes Lapras on cleanup duty, and he is going to take down Lucian.
That could not have gone better from the TheFoxSound. They caught them in a really awkward situation where, one, they outnumbered them, they had more damage, and Zoro Zero's taking the opportunity to try and bully Xerius around. He won't go for the tower dive, but the TheFoxSound might be able to convert this into a dragon, which will pull them ahead in gold, which is exactly what they need. They have 2 kills onto Kha'Zix, which is all he really needs in the early game to get rolling. A kill onto Katarina. This composition can now start to work.
Especially with this dragon, really well played from TFS, and almost a perfect example of why you pick up teleport on mid laners, especially reset champions, because Katarina now, fair enough, didn't get both the kills, but got one and managed to get Kha'Zix back into this game.
Yeah, and right now, the scoreline is 2-3. Xerius is still having a tough time in the top lane, and even tougher time when Nuke Duck arrives.
Well, it's not looking too good. Almost a rinse and repeat from the previous gank, except this time it's Nuke Duck instead of Armin, but the same result. This time Yasuo picks up the kill.
Yeah, and regardless of what happens here, Metas, we are going to see a ton of action, because we have to see action. The way that the TheFoxSound have constructed their composition means they get kills or they fall behind, and that we're going to constantly see them try and get themselves into fights, which may not necessarily work out for them, but they kind of just have to do that. But they have a ton of damage, and as soon as they can get one kill off, then they will just destroy the rest of the fight. Sona is going to be one of the key components in that. We saw that in the bot lane, and Crescendo came across, and they essentially have to win the team fight during the duration of Crescendo, because they are so squishy. They output all their bursts, and as soon as the Crescendo is up, then NIP turn around, and they may not have all the damage in the world, but it will be enough to deal with the no defensive item lineup of TheFoxSound.
Oh, well, top lane, as you're talking, Santrin went in hard onto Zoro, who actually flashed away. Now looks like they're going to be returning the favour. Ward comes down. Do they have enough damage? Zoro will not be going down as a beautiful cocoon from Armin. So they take down Kha'Zix on 2-0. Beautiful play.
And they took away the double buff, which is very important, because that was just allowing him to go from lane to lane with no problems with his mana, increasing his damage, and almost ensuring he'd get a kill. Lapras is going to go ahead and use his Death Lotus. He knows he can't secure a kill with that because he can't even rely on his jungler coming in and supplying CC, because they actually just have very little CC on their team. They have Flame Chompers and they have Crescendo. That is the extent of their CC.
Yeah, so again, it comes back to what you were saying before about there will be fireworks, there will be action in this game, because TFS composition simply does not allow them to turtle. If they turtle, they've already lost the game here, Pulse. They have to go out swinging here. They have to go with the intention of getting kills, getting objectives. They can't play passive.
Rumble's currently their weak link in the fact he's behind his lane while the other ones are slightly ahead, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue when he starts roaming, because Equalizer's still going to be just as potent, and they're using the Equalizer more as like a disruptive tool to keep people away. While they cut off the right targets, they'll jump onto the back line, keep away the front line while they deal with them, and then they'll try and converge on them after. That, to me, feels like what they're shooting for, and the Equalizer will help that. They'll go for like the jungle skirmishes, they'll go for those tight, confined environments where it's difficult to get away from the assassins.
Well, speaking of assassins, both are situated around the mid area. Armin's coming around from the side, has been spotted from a ward, so Cocoon will not be landing. But still, they're forcing back Kha'Zix, who with that double buff, as you said, was very adamant on playing aggressive, and now it's kind of been put in his place again, Paul, so he's now feeling the effects a bit.
Yeah, so the third round of buffs has started to spawn, and I'm actually seeing Ninjas and Pyjamas make a very aggressive play.
Well, Cocoon lands on Santrin, and he is going to get completely decimated. And this is the problem that we were talking about in champion selection at the start of the game. They simply have no tanks. They're going to get crushed very quickly if one Cocoon lands.
If they get caught out, they die. However, if they catch NIP out, then they will also die. It's literally a cat and mouse game with skirmishes and fights ending in literally a matter of seconds. Because if one person goes down, then the other team has to retreat. However, the TheFoxSound have greater cleanup potential because they have those resets. But they can't afford to fall behind. That seems exactly what's going to happen. Miffy is already looking to be aggressive on the bot lane, and Nukeduck has turned up.
Oh, forcing the flash away from Zykion. Certainly saving his life. Top lane, though. Zerius is being forced back again. He's 2 levels behind Zoro. That is significant because now that's going to force away Santorin from these bottom/dragon fights to try and help out his top laner. His top lane is getting crippled right now.
And Miffy almost taking that small lizard, but not going to quite get it. This is not really the fight that the TheFoxSound want. And when the dragon spawns, if NIP decide to go for that first, that might be a chance for TFS to build up more momentum and increase their tempo in this game, because they want everyone to be confined. They want everyone to be in a close cluster so that Katarina can do her job and Santrin can start getting the resets and Crazy Cat can chase people down. That's the ideal scenario, but not getting killed by Zoro.
And Lapras has burnt his flash, will be getting ignited. Here comes Nukeduck from the side. Pick up the kill. Another tower dive that Zoro is involved in. And here comes Arias from the side. Does he have the damage? Because Nukeduck is here as well. Going to be last breathing on top of Zerius. Equalizer is used in kind, but that's going to be another kill to Zoro while the bottom tower falls.
I didn't even think it interacted like that. I think the Equalizer got blocked by the wind wall, even though it's like the projectile was coming from the above. Oh, Super Mega Death Rocket connects onto Nukeduck. So that actually just turned it into a 2-for-1. But I can't believe Windwall actually blocked the Equalizer. That's weird.
It definitely is an interesting mechanic that I didn't know existed. But that coast-to-coast snipe from Inks there was beautiful. That was from bottom lane. So really just kind of preemptively deciding where do I think he's going to be recalling, and chose correctly.
Yeah, that was quite annoying. But another kill in return is exactly what they need. So The pace of the game has slowed down, but that has rapidly meant that we are approaching the second dragon. So the TheFoxSound really needs to make something of it. They can't afford to just let the dragon go, and they really can't afford to have one person get picked so they can't contest him. And that's actually relatively difficult to do against NIP. They've picked a good composition about removing a component from the TheFoxSound so their composition doesn't work and they can't go for fights. Like they have Miffy on Blitzcrank who can just pick someone off, and at the same time we've already seen what Ammon can do with those cocoons.
Yeah, he has been on point with those skill shots. Here comes Teleport from bot lane, the lap press jumping on top of Miffy, who, remember, with the speed up from his W, his overdrive is deceptively fast, but the repel has came out from Elise, who's going to be going back down into the Flame Chompers, or not. Culling is used as well from Freeze to force back the onslaught. Not able to pick up any kills, which they desperately wanted to do, as Dragon has respawned.
They're finding it hard to land the damage because they just don't have any CC apart from Zaitian. It's just difficult to stack that on top of each other. 0-0's found themselves areas, but more interested in this Dragon engagement. It's going to be a 4 versus 4, but Ninjas in Pyjamas are split. In fact, we're going to see the TheFoxSound just go ahead and retreat from this one.
Yeah, looks like they're more interested in defending their mid tower, and here comes a super mega death rocket, not able to pick up the dragon with the splash damage. Instead, Armin smites that one away. And again, Ninjas in Pyjamas have been on point with these dragons. I believe they got all the dragons, all 4 or 5 of them in game number 1, and looking to rinse and repeat here.
Absolutely. So right now, taking a quick look at the itemization from Ninjas in Pyjamas, we haven't paid them too much attention. We're paying so much attention to the TheFoxSound because we're so interested in how that will work and actually operating as a competitive level, because we know these guys are so good with their champions individually, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a competitive game. But we do have Nuked Up well on his way to that grab almost landing, but well on his way to his standard item build of the Static Shiv and Infinity Edge.
Well, 0-0 is keeping that 2-level advantage and really punishing Xerius here. Losing pretty much no damage in these trades, and the complete opposite can be said for Xerius' Rumble. So this is what I'm talking about before. At some point, Santrin is going to have to go to top lane, or they face losing another tower, and potentially in time the Inhib tower as well.
Yeah, Lapras going to go ahead and use Death Lotus, and even landing a full channel didn't do that much damage to Nuked Up. His biggest problem so far, Mess, has been his inability to land his full channel because of their lack of CC and making sure they'll stand in one place, but he's not actually doing that much damage.
I think it's a case that you're going to have Kha'Zix and Katarina in the same place at the same time, trying to nuke down players. If that's no longer possible, they've got a real trouble here, Pulse.
Yeah, he's tried to overcome the issue of his team being very squishy by picking up the Zhonya's Hourglass first, so they're opting for their defensive items as soon as possible, but 0-0 is closing in. He's going to just be running back to his ally. They're more interested in this tower before they turn on those champions, and by playing the objective control makes it harder and harder for them to come back into this.
Oh, Dominus has been used. Santrin is getting absolutely decimated. The Equalizer this time will be going down, forcing Yasuo away from the fight. Can they congregate and knock down 0-0? Finally they do so. Shutdown comes into effect. That took 3 players and pretty much everything they could throw to finally take down the Crocodile.
Yeah, and Amin's been chilling at the bot lane for like a good couple minutes now, just trying to take down this turret. They've realized they just need to change the pace of the game and say, well, we don't need to fight these guys one-on-one. We'll just go for their towers, and they can't fight us if their Nexus is dead.
Yeah, and it's kind of a war of attrition right now that NIP are probably going to want to transition into, whereby they have the tankier members and they're just like, okay, come at us, bros, and let's see who comes out on top. Let's see who the last man standing is. Right now, in a 5v5 fight, that would be Ninjas in Pyjamas, but that shutdown on Katarina is so important, Pulse.
Okay, so the TheFoxSound are converging on the bottom lane, and Crescendo is available. They just need 1 kill to start this fight off for them, but again, the disengage is a bit too strong, and the coin very smartly is being itemized by Miffy, which will make it even harder for the TheFoxSound to find the fights that they want. So right now, there's just not very much for them to do. They can farm out, but they're reliant on killing them.
Yeah, and they're facing against a fairly difficult team to lock down. Overdrive from Miffy, Slice and Dice from 0-0. Nuduck is able to jump between minions whenever he so chooses. Relentless Pursuit, of course, from Freeze's Lucian, and then Repel from Elise. It's not an easy team to lock down, Pulse, and make the fights as you want. Very slippery, and that could prove to be a massive downfall here.
The fight will start, and then NIP will just peace out. there might be like one guy who gets caught, but the only person who's going to get caught most likely will be 0-0, who's the one who's furthest forwards, and the rest of the team has already disappeared. That's going to be Red Buff potentially going for 0-0. We'll see if Santron can get this one away. He did manage to smite it out.
Yeah.
And we might see a jungle fight, but TFS can't afford to just dig in deep and try and get to late game.
And you can already see the amount of pressure that is being applied globally right now as well from Ninjas in Pyjamas, where they're just effectively taking the jungle of TFS. Fair enough, the Smite was able to steal away that red buff, but wards are going down, all in the side of Ninjas in Pyjamas onto TFS's jungle. Look on the flip side, nothing is down right now from TFS. They're completely blind.
You can see how unconcerned Ninjas in Pyjamas has been about any of the effect that the TheFoxSound has had this far, because their farm is essentially perfect in every single lane. A tower falls in the bottom lane. We're going to have a quick pause coming out, but their farm is incredibly good. The jungler is doing well. The kills are on all the right people, and Miffy's Blitzcrank pick is only going to be proportionally going to get stronger, because if they can pick someone out, then it gets difficult. But Ammon's going to disconnect, and we'll see if we can get back into the game very quickly.
Yep, has quit out of the game, so hopefully he's going to be back in. I honestly feel that Sona Talisman of Ascension is so important in this game, because alongside the Song of Celerity, which is, if you didn't know, the movement speed, a boost that she gives her teammate, that is going to be able to close some of that distance that we were talking about before with how slippery Ninjas in Pyjamas are. So I completely 100% agree with that Talisman of Ascension pick up here from Zykion, and this is kind of irritating. I'm paused at the top and all I can hear is Flame Spitter constantly going off from Zarius.
I'm actually trying to rewind and go to somewhere else and then pause it again, because that's quite irritating with that
the longest flamethrower ever.
Yeah. If it actually stayed like that, that would be annoying.
It sometimes happens though, doesn't it, with pauses?
Yeah,
you get like Sunfire Cape animations and red buff animations on characters, so if I hear Flame Spitter for the rest of this game, I may end up going insane.
Yeah, I will definitely reconnect, because I actually can't deal with it. It's actually getting really annoying. I'm going to go back and rewind. I can't.
Just as Ammon reconnects. GG.
Fantastic.
Trolled.
Let's rapidly click J.
Well, a couple of things being said right now in the chat, but we don't know exactly when we're going to go live again. So, taking stock of the situation, obviously, as you can see at the top, 7-5, 3-1 in towers, and 3.1k advantage to Ninjas in Pyjamas. It's a much closer game, I'd say, Pulse, than number one, which ended 18-2, and was, I believe, 7-2 towers in the end in favour of Ninjas in Pyjamas, which is good news from TFS. But we've already said that it's a case that you need to get that ball rolling early for TFS, and with the exception of Katarina and Kha'Zix both having 2 kills, I wouldn't necessarily say they're there yet.
There's something I caught on the other side of the map that isn't the Flame Spitter constantly looping, is that Zytian misses Crescendo. He just blindly used it on the bush, and no one was there. So that's Crescendo down. He may have misclicked, and maybe hoping that no one saw it.
Interesting. It happens, you know. He is human after all, who knew?
Yeah, sometimes you just expect these players to be robots and perform perfectly every single game, but there are actually people on the other end of these champions.
Which is quite difficult to believe with some of the players that we've seen over these past 18. Again, I can't believe it's been that many now, Pulse. It seems like only yesterday when we were in our first couple, but 18 Challenger Series, we've seen some phenomenally strong players. Unfortunately, we've seen our fair moments of derp as well.
Indeed. I'm not sure we caught that on camera, so that's probably a good thing. So Santron is hanging around in his own jungle. 0-0 is going to notice the particles and wander on over. Make sure that Santron can't even farm his own Wraith. Let's see who gets this one up. 0-0 dragging it away from Santron. Does he have the smite available? Yes, he does, but 0-0 not concerned too much about it.
Alrighty, so as you can see, a couple more items being picked up here. Aegis of the Legion has just been taken from Armin's Elise, so very tanky right now, alongside that Spirit of the Ancient Golem and Haunting Guise. So again, the differences in survivability and tankiness is so big between the two teams.
Typically, you don't pick up Aegis of the Legion anymore because it's just not item efficient, it's not gold efficient. But against a heavy AP team, you're going to be hit by the Rumble, the Sonar, the Katarina, even a little bit from, in fact, nothing really from Kha'Zix, but you'll be stopping that from your entire team. And because all of that AP damage is AoE, then it's effectively mitigating way more than it would usually, actually making the Aegis a more viable pickup.
Well, on the flip side, as expected, the Spirit of the Elder Lizard is the first lock-in from Kha'Zix, who was saying before, it's such a strong item right now. And aforementioned Armin has just picked up the Dragon for his team. So another objective slips through the fingernails right now of TFS, and looking to try and push down mid, but they're going to meet stiff opposition, I should say, with Renekton potentially coming around from the back.
Game really is pulling away from them, but they do outnumber them in the mid lane. They just can't quite get it off. Crescendo lands
on Armin, but he's just going to instantly repel away and he can get back to the Wraith. So that now going to be turning back on towards Blitzcrank, who will be falling down, but now Yasuo will take down the opposition support. 2-for-1 trade, soon to be a 3-for-1, and Zoro goes huge and will be taking down Crazy Caps' Jink. So 1-for-3 trade. Again, I'm slightly confused as to why you'd go all in on an Elise who easily can repel away onto the Wraiths.
I don't even think Miffy thought that either, because he just walked in and was like, oh. And then was like right in the middle of 4 assassins. But it's not going to matter. 3-for-1 trade, and that only 1 kills onto the support. 23 minutes in, they're going to make an attempt at Baron. They've got the Spalings to tank it up, but they're so good in these confined environments. Equalizer comes across the wall. I'm not sure if they do enough damage, though. They've lost so many members. Oh, Santorin. That is a failed steal attempt if I've ever seen one, and will be dying for his troubles.
And Lapras teleporting in as well, so interesting teleport in the end there. Actually teleporting after the Baron was used. Oh my goodness, that combination of the grab into the last breath. And actually it's going to prove to be Nukeduck's downfall, going a bit too ham. And he will be punished for his over-exuberance.
I mean, he died, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
I guess that's exactly why they picked Blitzcrank, but that's fantastic. As yeah, on a Nukeduck. That's pretty good.
That was honestly amazing combination. Everything after the combination though was pretty terror,
yeah.
to be honest. But you know, the combination's all that matters. As I say, style points. He may have died, but with a huge grin on his face, I'm sure.
Definitely worth it. So 11-7, they're in good shape, and nothing appears to be going to stop them. Again, they'll be supplementing the weak champions, their flimsy champions, with more defensive item builds. Ryle Crystal Scepter picked up over the Leandries first by Rumble. That's going to be the Zhonya's Hourglass, as already mentioned, and Warden's Mail by Kha'Zix. So they're kind of reducing their damage, but because they have more damage champions, they're trying to offset that. I'm not sure if it works necessarily, but we'll see what happens. It just seems in head-on confrontations, they just cannot burst down NIP, and I'm not sure if they can overcome that threshold.
And that, in a nutshell, is one of the biggest determining factors into why reset compositions fail. If you can't burst down one champion, if you can't get that reset snowball rolling down the hill, you're in dire straits, Pulse. It's exactly what TFS are finding out the hard way right now.
That's typically why you don't just hedge all your bets on that. You'll have like a tanky champion, have a well-rounded composition, instead of having three of them. But Zaishin pulled over the wall by Miffy.
Oh, well, that's just dead. There's not too much else to say. The second double shot there from Freeze travelled a fair distance, though. Round a corner, wanted style, but still got the kill after the flash.
Yeah, and chased him down, and I mean, his corpse did make it over the wall, so, you know. That's
A for effort.
A for effort. Indeed, Santorin cannot even fight Zoro. I think Zoro is at the point where he's 4-1-4, has 2 defensive items, had half of another one, and the Tiamat. He could probably quite easily 2v1, if not 3v1 at this stage.
It's just like 0 cares given for any of Crazy Cap's damage. It's like, yeah, you're rocket launching me. I'm a crocodile. I have a thick hide. None of that's getting through. And in the meanwhile, while your AD carries at top trying to bother me, we'll just let the rest of my team take mid, and there's nothing you can do about it. So quickly this is escalating into a precarious position for TFS, if it already wasn't one, with over 10k lead for Ninjas in Pyjamas, looking to take game number 2.
They're just playing the simple split push game because they know that Yasuo can 1-versus-1 anyone, they know that Renekton can 1-versus-1 anyone, and then the 3-man stack in the mid lane is going to be Blitzcrank, who's quite threatening with the pull-in and this severe damage from Freeze. He's already 2 items AD carry, and Ammon as well will just lock a person down. So this is really quite brutal because TFS are in the situation where they just need more members.
And it's one of those kind of games as well that we see time and time again in the challenger scene here, also where one team is back against the wall, and it's that slow kind of walk to the end, where neither team wants to go all in and make mistakes that could let the opposition get back into it. And so Ninjas in Pyjamas, you can't blame them for playing safe and slow. But from a spectatorial viewpoint, you're like, we want that fireworks, we want that action that was so promised early on in the game from these comps. It's not really delivered so far. It's been kind of a whimper more than a bang this game.
Yeah, and the FoxSound have very quickly gotten to the point where they just have to hold down in their base and dig into the trenches, because they can't just step outside at this time because they're just too far behind. Hopefully, if they just get overzealous and try and jump in for a tower dive, they can sweep them up, but Ninjas in Pyjamas, the correct play here is just to play it slow.
Exactly. They know they have the upper hand. They know they have the stronger champions. 3-level advantage now for Zoro at top. And they can afford to split push. And if any point, TFS go super aggressive and try and make a desperation play, they can probably beat them 4v5 at this point, Pulse.
Absolutely. And, Zoro has just entered the base.
Because why not?
I'm not really sure what he wants to do in their base, but he's definitely in there. He's just taking some harassment from Zarius. I wouldn't be surprised if he just starts taunting or something, but he does have an escape route with his slice and dice. I think you can make that wall. I'm pretty sure you can, but he's still just kind of chilling.
I'm not sure if that is harassment or if it's possible to do negative damage, but it seemed like they were doing nothing to him. Flame Spitter at his face, it's like, okay mate, what's wrong? I'll just back on away because I'm a massive Renekton.
Yeah, and they're going to just walk into the mid lane, try their best to siege this one down. They actually don't really have a great sieging team, apart from Blitzcrank. If they get a pull in this situation, which is why they're hanging so far back, then they can just pick a person off one by one. But they actually have pretty shoddy siege. They're going to go for this fight.
They are really hard. This is the desperation play I was talking about before. They burnt a lot to try and secure that. Not able to do so. Still have all their ultimates, barring Santarins, though. So maybe they're going to go for take number 2.
Yeah, and Zoro's are still hanging around there. They're going to go for this one.
Oh, that last breath was massive. Pick up 1 kill, looking for the second Zyklon. They will be taking that one down. Here comes Zarius from the side, using that equalizer, not really doing anything. And this has been a 3-for-1 trade with just Mithy, the support, going down for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Lapras is getting chased by Zoro, and this is buying the rest of his team enough time to try and pick up one of these towers. Looks like they're more interested in trying to take down Rumble, though. Prefer them just go for this inhib tower, to be honest.
Yeah, the mini wave was coming in, and they were in the awkward position where they couldn't walk out because they're on such low HP, so they just had to wait there. And Rumble was trying his best to harass them out, but Inhibitors is going to fall, the first inhibitor of the game, and that should be a huge momentum play from Ninja in Pyjamas. 30 seconds to go on Baron will probably be the next objective. And Ninjas in Pyjamas, I wouldn't be surprised if they're recalling with a decent chunk of change. Indeed they are, and for some reason Lapras is just in their jungle.
He's still being chased from Zoro. Mercy, please. Nope, there's a cocoon in your face. Nice Sean Polo. Back on. I don't think it's going to buy enough time, though, because Armin's on the case.
Well, since the seal will speed him up.
Actually, went for the style points and killed Katarina with Sunfire Cape. Because why not?
That's the problem when you're Katarina, and you have built defensively with Zhonya's, but that doesn't protect against magic damage. And Crazy Caps, there's Nuked Up, there's Last Breath, and there's a dead Jinx.
Yeah, not really much else to say. It's just extreme terror. Santrin's been caught, will be jumping away with his leap and using his ulti as well just to get him away from harm. But again, it's life support's beeping. There's not a lot longer for TFS to survive in this game. As you say, Baron's going to be picked up with complete ease.
Yeah, and there's no way that they can really contest this. If they had 5 men on the board, perhaps they could just go for a last-ditch effort. But that's not really going to be the case. Zoro is quite happy and quite content to go 1 versus 3 right here. And the Baron's going to be falling, so hopefully Ninjas Pyjamas just take the next push. And we'll see if TFS can pull it back in the next game. Because at the moment, I'm not thinking they have too many chances in this game.
Oh, I'm pretty certain they've lost the game already, Pulse. I mean, I like to be an optimist, but it's hard to be optimistic in games like this because unless Ninjas in Pyjamas just all tower dive the fountain, I can't really see how TFS have enough damage or survivability to kill more than Mithy. As we saw in that last fight, Equalizer was fine, but there's just not enough follow-up damage. Lapras simply isn't doing enough damage, neither is Kha'Zix. Jinx is doing her best, but again, it's a case of you just getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, NIP are just securing every objective they possibly can on the map, every single camp, every single Baron and Dragon. They'll probably go back, finish up their item builds, and just congregate and solidify their victory. But Renekton's got 3k gold in his back pocket and still hasn't recalled.
It is. Looking really, really bad. And as you say, lots of gold in the back pocket of Ninjas in Pyjamas. And if it goes the way we're expecting, it will be 2-0 in this best of 5. So it's not completely down and out stage for TFS. It would be a mountain to climb to win 3 on the bounce. But we have seen it happen before in the EUS Challenger Series.
Yeah, it's not unheard of, and as the champions of EUS Challenger Series number 17, the TheFoxSound are definitely a very competent team, but we'll just have to see if they can just step up their game. They are facing down an ex-LCS team, and Ninjas in Pyjamas just showing exactly why they were.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one thing that TFS should really take from this. That yes, they've lost the first game fairly comfortably. The second game was a lot closer, and the team they're against are by no means slouches. Crescendo comes in, lands on absolutely nobody, barring maybe Elise, who already repelled. Culling as well from the side. Equalizer was very well placed there from Rumble. If they had more damage to follow up, this could have been a beautiful fight for them. But as it stands, they're going to get completely decimated, and that is a free ace coming out, 5-0. That's going to be the GG.
That's basically that team fight is how the TheFoxSound wanted their team fight to go, where they just delete everyone and take them down in a matter of seconds. But unfortunately, because they were so squishy, that just happened to them instead.
Yeah, and again, it's back to the drawing board. And with throwing out such an interesting composition as this reset comp pulse, what's left up their sleeve? Because maybe they're running out of ideas here.